Okay, so today is Saturday, and it is what, June 1st? Is it June 1st? Yeah, June 1st. And there is no sunlight. I mean, let me sit, because it looks like I'm sitting crooked, doesn't it? I don't know. Anyway, so it's just cloudy. And I was hoping by June we would actually have some decent weather, but not so much. It's still a little cold. I'm still having to use the greenhouse for stuff. It's crazy. You guys don't care about that. But anyway, someone had asked me what are other places to live in Tacoma that gives you more of a neighborhood feel besides downtown. Downtown Tacoma is cool, but there's some things that downtown definitely does not have. And so a lot of times folks are curious about what are some other places that they could potentially live that gives you a lot of convenience, is a place that's active. And downtown, to be honest with you, it has a lot of great things. And it's one of those places where I suggest people most of the time should live. But for some, that's not what they're wanting. They're wanting more of a neighborhood residential vibe. And one of the places that I would suggest is the Lincoln District. Now, the Lincoln District, also known as the International District, is a up and coming space neighborhood. And I say that because there's a lot of different things that have been going on over the last few years. It's named Lincoln District because of the high school that is there. And just the other day, I was going to a meeting and I had to go through the Lincoln District, and it was really, I guess that's, what is that, FedEx? Let me check. I might have to pause it for a second. Check the cameras, because I have those. What is that is out there right at the moment? Oh, Amazon. So I was going through the Lincoln District, and it was at the right time, right? So around noon, a lot of the kids, leave Lincoln High School and they roam around within the Lincoln High School, the Lincoln District, because there's a ton of places to eat. And a lot of people, Lincoln has, when you look at Lincoln District, it has about 9,000 people that live in that small neighborhood. And it feels very urban, right? So when you go into the main streets of the International District, you're going to feel this urbanness, which you don't always feel in downtown Tacoma. Downtown Tacoma, you do have the bigger buildings and things like that, but it is much bigger. So even though you have soda students down there and other folks, it is still kind of scattered. The Lincoln District is more concentrated. In fact, it's got about 9,000 people per square mile, like in a square mile, less than a square mile. So it's a very, I think it's half of a half of a mile. It is so half of a square mile. It has about 9,000 people. That is a very dense neighborhood, no matter where you go. Right? If you double it, say a square mile, you're talking probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 16 to 18,000 people that would live in a square mile. So this is roughly half that and half the size. It is you feel the density, right? There are events that go on. So it's kind of like a pseudo downtown, if you will, because you still have so many different events that you can go to and attend there. As I mentioned, it is the International District, and it has a lot of different things to do, a lot of different places to eat, right? Storefronts there are not nearly as expensive as downtown, and you have a lot of folks that roam around. Now, some people will say that it is a poor neighborhood. I've had people comment and say, "Oh, it scared me going through there." The reality is that places, and when I lived in Indianapolis, I lived on the north east side, right? So Castleton area. And over there by, Castleton. And then the Fashion Mall and all that stuff. So I know what nice neighborhoods look like, and that's where I lived, right? The equivalent down here is going to basically be Old Town and Ruston. And even to some degree, Ruston doesn't quite hold that same amount of weight. Ruston is beautiful because of where it's located. So you're close to Point Defiance Park, you have the water in front and all of that. So it gives it that kind of umph. You're also over on the northwest side of the city, so you have more wealth over there. Old Town is right over in that area too. So you have all of that going for it. Had that not been the case, you wouldn't necessarily have it. Castleton up in Indianapolis is pretty much all on its own. You do have Fishers, which is a suburb north of that. You also have Carmel, which is kind of over a little bit. So you have all that wealth there for sure, but it is a high-end neighborhood. Some people think they have these champagne dreams and they have beer budgets. They think that they should live in a place that looks like Beverly Hills. And I'm going to tell you, most of the people in this country cannot afford to live like that. The average house here is about $550,000. And these are not houses that are like posh in circumstance. These are your typical homes that are in Tacoma that are 100 years old or at least 50 years old. Right? That's typically what you're going to see. The bulk of the houses here look like that. Now, they may have had some remodeling done on the outside, but a lot of the homes here are built either in the 40s, 50s, if not even before. I think the vacuum is now done. And it's going to be very loud, so I apologize. We bought this robot. It's called Roborock over here. Noelle spent a lot of money on that thing. We have the other two that we had. They were small black ones. This thing is huge. I think she spent well over $1,000 on that thing. But at any rate, it does what it needs to do. It's pretty smart. But at any rate, so you're going to have homes here that are going to be much more older. And when you look in the Lincoln District, these homes are nice. Now, the Lincoln District itself is not going to have Bellevue. It's not going to look like that. It's your typical hardworking average neighborhood that has a high concentration of ethnic businesses. Hold on one second. It's loud. It'll stop. Okay. So, it, that's what you're going to see. And so a lot of times people expect it to be this posh place. When I've been to big cities, New York City, places like that, you still see neighborhoods and areas that are very urban. You see rusted, metal, and you see, rails that are, sun beaten, and you see old windows, and you see old stuff, old brick and ladders and all that stuff. You see that stuff because you're in a city that's much older. Tacoma is by far older, not by far, but it's older than Seattle. Seattle went through and destroyed most of what was Seattle, and you have all this new stuff. Tacoma doesn't do that. It started to. And in fact, if you look at downtown, there's all these holes because it was much more urbanish than it is today. But we've had people in the past that didn't really cherish that, and they just leveled everything. So a lot of stuff down there that used to be there is not there. And so they've torn down a lot of stuff. When you look at leadership today, and I'm not talking city leadership, but organizations that are designed to really prop up downtown, they do a very piss poor job of showing what downtown's really all about. One of the people that is trying to change that is Grit City Tours. That gentleman is a breath of knowledge. But he does a great job. Over Tacoma, they do drone footage. They do a great job. But other than that, entities that are supposed to really promote downtown, make downtown look great, they're really not doing everything that they can. So a lot of times when people come here, they're like, "It, I wasn't that impressed." But if things were going the way they were supposed to, downtown Tacoma, I feel, would be a lot stronger and healthier, and we would have a lot more stuff going on. But instead, you're seeing it happen in other parts of the city, more so than downtown. If you look at the mall area, that has had so much retail growth just in 2 years that it is unbelievable. So many new stores, so many different things that have come in, they're going in that direction versus our downtown. Why? Because we don't have the right people in the right place at the right time reaching out to these organizations and businesses to say, come to downtown. We don't have anyone doing that. So as a result, organically, they fall into places where places reach out. So the mall, General Growth Properties, I believe, or is it Simon? Simon owns the Tacoma Mall, Simon Properties, and they bring in businesses. They reach out. In fact, they've tried to get us to locate our studio there, right? When we're looking at the Lincoln District, it is an organically grown community. Yes, but Buddy's Chicken and Waffles has moved in to the old Uncle Therm's location, right? You have that. You have a new housing development going up by THA. That's going to add some more retail. Right there, Lincoln Hardware was supposed to be a ghost kitchen. There's a group back in the day, big company, that had a ghost kitchen. They were going to put it there. Doesn't seem like that's going to happen. But to be honest with you, I would like for that hardware store to reopen as an Ace Hardware store because it just makes sense. Or something like that. There's grocery stores there, right there in the Lincoln District. These are not going to be your big grocery store chains, but they're family owned. Most of them are ethnic grocery stores. So you're going to see Asian grocery stores and the like. But it is a interesting neighborhood. The dynamics in the Lincoln District versus downtown is drastically different. The clientele is drastically different. And for some, this is what they would like to see. They want to see ethnic diversity that's truly celebrated, right? That's the key. It's not about just having diversity. It's about having diversity and celebrating that diversity. And you're going to get that in the Lincoln District. There's a lot of stuff to do there. There's a lot of places to eat. It's very walkable. And if you don't want to live in an apartment, there's a lot of homes in that area. So you have a lot of residential single family homes that are within the Lincoln District, or what's known as the Lincoln District. But again, the caveat is these are going to be homes that are going to be a little bit older. We don't have a lot of housing stock that's 20 years and younger. If it is, it's because some house was there before, it either burned down or they knocked it down and they put in something new. Most of what you're going to see is remodels, unless you go over to certain parts of the city that's newer or certain areas where they've got an infill. That might be different, but generally speaking, homes are going to be a little bit older. So have that as an expectation. If you're waiting for the new house or the house that's only 5 years old with marble and all that stuff, it is not going to exist. If it does, you probably cannot afford it. When we're talking homes like that, you're going to see prices go up a lot higher because they're not common, right? A lot of times I've seen people coming from different cities, Atlanta or Houston or other places where it's not quite as expensive and you can get a lot of house. But when you come here, it really, Indianapolis is a good example. You can get a lot of house for not a lot of money. You bring that same mentality here and you're not going to have the same equivalent, right? It is cheaper to live here by far than it is, say, Seattle or definitely Bellevue or Everett or any of those. But it's still going to be a little bit more expensive than the rest of the country. Now, the West Coast is notoriously expensive. I think Tacoma is probably one of the most affordable cities, bigger cities on the West Coast. And so that is something that people like. You have a lot of people that move here and they go all the way up to Seattle to work or down to Olympia to work. A lot of them work here in the city. We are our own independent city. We do have a very strong art and culture scene here, but also an equally strong food scene. Tacoma's food scene is really, really, really starting to grow. And to be honest with you, I think it rivals, our art scene rivals Seattle by far. I think that we are the arts hub of the Puget Sound. And then I think the food scene here rivals what you see up in Seattle. Seattle has a lot of expensive high-end restaurants and stuff, but again, that doesn't provide culture, in my opinion. That's just a high-end place that people, should go and show off. The hole-in-the-wall places, the places that are institutions that have been around forever. Spuds is one that comes to mind. It's not in the Lincoln District, but it's been around forever. It's an institution. It's a place where you can go and easily make friends. You just sit there for 5 minutes, people are going to talk to you. That's just how it is, right? That is so Tacoma. And it gives you a good idea of the fact that it is definitely a city that's a little bit more open-minded in terms of just people that come through. I've even had people from California move here and say, I didn't want to say I was from California because people typically hate it. They remember driving up before they moved here and getting gas, and people would see their license plates and just, give them nasty looks. Tacoma's not so much that way. I mean, we're pretty much open-minded in terms of people that do come. Just don't be disrespectful to the city. That's all. Don't, badmouth it. We get a lot of that. Excuse me. But the Lincoln District is one of those areas that is definitely up and coming. South Tacoma Way is another one, but I think that the Lincoln District's a little bit further along because South Tacoma Way is really, it's kind of like its own little town. I'll definitely do videos in these two locations to show you. But South Tacoma Way is kind of like its own neighborhood bar. It's got its own bar scene. Nightlife there is pretty big, and it's growing. Airport Tavern's doing a lot of stuff, putting in a big concert venue there. So it's a different type of neighborhood. But again, I go back to what I said before. If you're expecting homes that look like, a Dallas suburb, you're not going to get that, right? If you're wanting that, you're going to have to go out to places here in Tacoma that I'm not going to mention that we saw a home because we might want to get something out there if I can convince Noelle to move. Noelle does not want to move. She just doesn't want to, and she likes exactly where we are. I've begged and pleaded and cried and pissed on myself trying to get her to move. She won't do it. But I'm working on it. But there is a new up-and-coming suburb that does give you the posh, pretty, and the nice brand new homes and all the new because it's new. Everything's new, right? It's a brand new everything. Brand new city. So, but at any rate, I don't want to talk about it because then everybody will flood there. House prices will balloon even higher than what they are there. And it's limited stock and they're building as fast as they can. But transportation is a problem, not only for that city that I'm talking about, but also for the Lincoln District. Why is it a concern in the Lincoln District, even though it is in an area where it shouldn't be? It's because we don't have the right type of transportation in Tacoma in general, in my opinion. And so I think that we should have more express buses in locations. This is one of those areas that should. So transportation, while you're there living, walkability is amazing. Walk out your house. You can walk within less than, I look at it short miles and long miles. Long miles is a mile or greater. So a mile to a mile and a half is long. Anything under that is short. So a short distance for me is going to be probably 3 blocks, right? In the Lincoln District, you can have those short distances where, 3 blocks walking in any direction, you're able to eat at many different places, shop, do a lot of different things. So as long as you're there, you're good. If you have to travel and you're relying on public transportation or you want to rely on public transportation, it's available, but it's a little bit more challenging. Again, the farther you get from downtown, the connectivity is not as good and fast and efficient. But this is one of those areas where, to me, they should be running a rapid bus system down Yakima. It would make so much sense because you're cutting through a very residential area. And we have a lot of these mixed-use neighborhoods like the Lincoln District and South Tacoma Way, where they vary in size. Some of them are very small. I live in a mixed-use area, right? But it doesn't have all that. You know, there's only just a few things here and there, and I can kind of walk to. The girls can walk to and get something. I technically can go to another area that has like a bunch of stuff that's all nice and all that. It requires cutting through a park to get there, but you can technically do it. The Lincoln District's a little different. Everything is boom right there, and it provides a lot of opportunity. A lot of opportunity. So it really just depends. But an option two, living downtown, still having that urban vibe, having that ethnic enrichment, there's no place better, in my opinion, than the Lincoln District. It is a safe neighborhood. People will say it's not that safe, and there was a time when there was some homelessness and stuff like that. That has since kind of abated quite a bit. I will say the homelessness situation in Tacoma is still present. It's not going to just disappear. But downtown, you didn't see as much of that. You start seeing waves of homeless people being pushed out, really, from downtown. And you would see them come farther away from downtown. They've already passed where I live now, and they're going farther out. But we saw that. We saw a lot of it. I started to see a few tents, farther down the road. I started to see homeless people walking around quite a bit. You started to see it. But again, this is one of those neighborhoods that's very active. There's a lot of homes. And so it just didn't make sense. So they are now not so much here. I haven't seen it. But again, we did see a tent on the street for a bit. It was there for about a week and then gone. Because this is private property, right? So people will say, don't know. And so, excuse me, I'm still battling this, whatever the heck it is, a month later. And all of us are. It's just horrible. But anyway, check out the Lincoln District. No, it's not going to be the prettiest place, but if you like a place that's got this grit appeal, it's got a lot of cool places to shop and eat. It's got a really good school. Lincoln High School is pretty cool. A very busy area, oftentimes. This is kind of it. I would probably choose Lincoln District as my second choice, downtown being my first if I was new to the city. The reason why I say downtown is because there's a lot of great connectivity, there's a lot of stuff, but downtown really needs to be developed a lot more. A lot of the development's happening in other places. Right in the Central Business District, which again, organizations that should promote it more aren't doing what they're supposed to. But if they were, the Central Business District of downtown could really develop. The problem is greedy landlords, property developers, things like that, who would rather take a loss by keeping their properties really highly inflated in price. So you're not seeing as much retail growth of what you could have because we don't have organizations pushing these landlords who have vacant storefronts for decades to change their policy. There's no policies being created by the city. And again, I've talked about having a strong mayor because a strong mayor would make sure that that stuff gets solved. And if not, then the citizens should boot them out. People have tried numerous times to get organizations that are supposed to do this work to really focus on putting more businesses downtown, doing a lot of great things, creating policies, creating space for businesses, and it hasn't happened. They're like, the hell with what you're saying, F what you're saying, continue to give us grant money. And I think that people are getting frustrated with that. But at any rate, when we're talking about the Lincoln District, it's a completely different thing. There's no empty storefronts. If it is, it's because someone just moved out and somebody else is coming in. Typically, things go in. The only thing I'm aware of that's kind of empty right now is Lincoln Hardware, and if I would have to guess it, they're probably going to turn that into some sort of an apartment building eventually as well. So anyhow, tell me what your thoughts are. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, I will see you. Take care.